So can I ask you, let's start with that, because obviously the inauguration in Washington of the new president, America, Caroline was just telling us, America is a very divided country. We know that, but this is a new opportunity. Trump comes into power. I mean, you're a businesswoman. You run an extraordinary company, a turnover of what, 7 million or thereabouts. How many people do you employ?
52.
52, right? We need to celebrate people like you. Do you see Trump coming into power as something that we should celebrate, or is it a day of mourning?
It's quite interesting because our company is on what they call an urban incubator with America at the moment. So I go again in March, and I was quite fascinated when I went over there because I thought they'd be really forward thinking, they'll be really good at net zero, they'll know. Completely behind, and it's quite overwhelming to look at that country and to see what we can do as innovators over there.
What were you most surprised by? I mean, I would agree with you, but the net zero thing, they just think it's a nonsense, don't they?
Well, the old government doesn't think it's a nonsense.
No, they didn't.
They've put a massive fund, the IRA, which that's the name of the fund, against making sure we can do net zero and working with other countries so innovators like us can go and work in other countries. And the interesting thing is, for myself, if I manufactured over there and I manufactured in an area that was, you know, people were poor, and I improved employment, they would give me huge tax benefits to move over there. Now, with Trump, it might be different. He doesn't believe in anything to do with net zero, so we'll see, because Elon Musk obviously
you don't know if it's a threat or whether it's something to celebrate or whether it's a day of mourning?
Well, we will know on Tuesday, probably, won't we?
But, and your gut feeling is?
My gut feeling is he probably is going to be interested in getting gas back, oil back, reducing the cost,
100%.
which actually oil will be good for our economy anyway. I don't think he's going to push net zero like we are in this country. But
which many people will applaud.
Probably, yeah. But for me, in electric heating,
I know.
You know, it doesn't matter whether whether we're doing that or not.
But that's really. Andy. So, just in terms of that, do you think it's a day of celebration or a day of mourning?
I don't think it's either.
Don't you?
No. I look. Firstly, I think as a political junkie, inauguration once every 4 years, big spectacle. I'll definitely be watching. It's really interesting kind of theatre.
1:30 apparently our time.
Yeah, and it's being held inside because it's so freezing over there.
Yeah.
We don't know yet is the answer. You know, we've had 4 years of Trump, and it was a really mixed bag.
But Harrison made a really good point, which is that also for the United Kingdom, when he came into power last time, we were still in the middle of Brexit woes and all the rest of it. So to do a trade deal with us would have been, I mean, we were just like this sort of aberrant child.
I mean, I don't think it's particularly likely that any US president is going to do a trade deal with us right now. It's not their priority.
No.
Trump's priority is obviously going to be, he was elected because people in America, by a very slim margin, believe that he would be better for their finances, for their pockets, and that's what he's going to be judged on.
I think it's more than that. I think they saw him as someone who would put America first.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with that, but I think when he talks about America first, and when people think about America first, there are all sorts of implications, but fundamentally, it's people and it's families going, what's best for me and my wife?
And rightly so.
But
also, that's what is so refreshing to me about Trump, is that he is putting people first. He is putting the United States first. Don't we need a political leader in this country who decides that actually we need to put the great back into Great Britain?
Yes, we do, and people that listen to the people, because they're not listening. There's a massive unrest. The manifesto for Labour was change. Change can always be difficult, but at the moment, the change has gone in a completely different direction as we're doing so many U-turns.
Well, that's right. So the change happens every day.
Yes.
And we change our policy every day.
Can I say one other thing about Trump? Which is, the thing that we need to be really concerned about, I think, and wary of, there are two things. Number one is democratic norms. You know, he really did push the boundaries of what it is to be a democracy when he was president last time. Some people might say, oh, well, we don't really care about... Well, in the sense of, you know, the way he behaved with the, you know, pushing the boundaries of the law, with appointing people to certain roles. I mean, this is within the law, but he stacked the Supreme Court, and that's going to have implications for long term. That is completely legal, absolutely. Everything with January the 6th.
I'd have people on my side.
Yeah, but it's going to have significant implications. It already has. Look at Roe v. Wade. I mean, there are women in about 50% of US states now who can't have an abortion if they want to, which I think is a disgrace. The thing I think we need to be really concerned about is what happens in Europe, in Eastern Europe, in Ukraine, because we could see Trump go over the head of Ukraine and do a deal which effectively annexes a massive chunk of that country. And I think that's a massive problem.
Is he going to do that? Go over people's heads? Look, he's a deal. He makes deals. I think Trump will make a deal.
He's bold. He's driven. He does what he says. That's why the people like it. And whether people wanted to vote for him or not, I think you're completely right, David. People were looking at their gas, you know, what they're paying for gas. It's gone up 60%. So actually, that's something he was going to drive down. So they're looking at their own pockets.
But you see, and that's the key. You see, when you've got people in this country who are freezing to death, where you've had the winter fuel allowance removed, where people can't afford their electricity. I phoned the electricity company because I want to know why my bill is nearly 500 quid a month.
Yeah. And one of the things that he's doing, I mean, I'm quite interested to see how it plays out with Elon Musk there, because he's putting them straight in to look at regulations, looking at government departments, looking at public spending, which we have been promised as a country. But at the moment, all I can see is that we're, you know, looking at businesses like mine, national insurance hikes, now looking at pensions, etc.
Could we learn in this country from someone like Trump, who does put... I mean, that's a really important point about Elon Musk, the Department of Government Efficiency, that lovely acronym, DOGE. So he's head of DOGE, and obviously he is noises off for Keir Starmer. It may be a day of celebration for this country. It's definitely not a day of celebration for Keir Starmer.
No, I mean, it's going to put Keir Starmer in a really, really difficult position, because Trump is just going to do whatever Trump
and
wants
David Lammy.
and run. Well, I mean, everybody in sort of Western democratic, particularly NATO countries, you know, is going to be putting a huge amount of pressure on NATO countries to up their defence spending dramatically.
But
that
he's
is
right.
a challenge. He is right, but then there is a trade-off, which is how we're going to pay for that, and that is not as straight.
Well, stop giving all these pay rises to all your union mates.
Well, I'm afraid that's not going to touch the sides in terms of the amount of money that
But don't
Trump
we need
is
to
talking about.
prioritise defence?
I think we do need to prioritise defence, but that if he's talking about up to 5% of GDP, and we're currently spending about 2.5,
2.3,
so 2.3, so we're going to have to find another 55 to 60 billion pounds a year. It's a hell of a lot of money.
I don't think we're the first in line for his ire. I think the other European countries are.
Yeah, because in fairness, we have upped our game recently. Yeah.
But I think in many ways, actually, Trump will push Europe. He will push the United Kingdom. It's interesting. Let me thank you for the moment. Let me throw that out to you. Is it a day of celebration or a day of mourning? Both of the panellists are slightly out on a limb here, not quite sure which way. Although Andy seems to be saying it's more problematic. Let me know your thoughts, please. 03444991000. This is Weekend Breakfast. Good morning.